What's good, YouTube? This is the Only Big Green Yu-Gi-Oh! Back again with another deck profile. And I noticed on my channel I haven't uploaded a GOAT deck profile ever since I first started my channel. And this is one of my favorite GOAT decks to play because it's like a GOAT deck that I kind of invented. It was already invented. A lot of you guys can probably guess what it is by Jowgen, FTK, or Last Turn FTK. But this build is special to me because I didn't take any inspiration from any builds. I actually went on Dueling Book and tested around in GOAT format for hours and hours and hours to get this build perfect. And then once I liked it, I built it in real life. And once I got it built in real life, this deck is actually really consistent. So it's not just one of those decks that I saw online and like this is actually one of those decks that I actually thought around and put time into. So first up, we run 3 Jowgens. Pretty much he's the win con of this deck. There's no way you can win in this deck without him. You have to have him. I mean, you could go the self-destruct route, but like I say, I didn't take any inspiration. This is just from my heart in general. So I don't run the other gimmicky stuff that the deck normally plays. I just play the Jowgen part. But anyways, Jowgen, you can discard a card from your hand to destroy all special summon monsters, but the main effect you want to worry about is neither player can special summon monsters. And you're going to see how this works. Next up, we play 1 Morphing Jar, and then we play 1 Cyber Jar. I play the 2 jars because this pretty much excavates 5 cards. That's really the only reason that I do that. And then Morphing Jar is for if I have a dead hand, I can set it and draw 5. It's really just for getting cards out of my deck and more cards into my hand. I play 2 Magician of Faith. I feel like 3 is way too many. 1 is not enough. 2 is the perfect amount for me. And it lets me add back to hand a lot of my spell cards, and you're going to see that there is a lot of draw spell cards in this deck. I play 2 Merchant. Again, 3's way too many, 1's not enough. I think 2's the perfect amount. I just use Merchant to get into my traps faster, like last turn, because last turn was only at 2 in GOAT format. 3 Dekoichi. I was playing only 1 Dekoichi, but that was way too little. And so I started testing it at 3 Dekoichi on Dueling Book, and I think 3 is the perfect amount. You could go down to 2 if you wanted to. I like opening up with this card because the fact that he's a free draw is amazing. And in GOAT format, it's a slower format, so you can buy a turn by just setting him. Play 2 Night Assailant. Night Assailant is pretty much just self-explanatory. You can loop him in the graveyard, or if you only have 1 in the graveyard, you can ditch him to add back to hand a Faith, a Morphing Jar, a Cyber Jar, a Dekoichi, any flip effect monster. But if you already have 1 in the grave when you discard the other, you can just simply loop them, so you pretty much have infinite discard. Next up, 3 Thunder Dragon. This is another self-explanatory card. I just run it so it's pretty much free discards. I rarely summon this card. The only time I summon this card is to like buy time up against my opponent if I know that they have a bricky hand and they don't have a monster that can beat over Thunder Dragon, or if I want them to waste their DD War Lady effect, that's normally when I'll just play the Thunder Dragon. But other than that, I use him for discard fodder. 1 Sinister, again, discard fodder. And it doesn't really come up that I use it. It rarely came up in real life testing and in Dueling Book testing where I actually set this card to stall. But if it comes to that situation, you can use it for that. Final monster, a Sangan to search out your Jowgen. That's really the only reason I use it for. Or if you have the Jowgen already in hand, what I'll normally go for is search out a Cyber Jar. And then on to the spells. 1 Pot of Greed, 1 Graceful Charity. I'm not playing the Trinity. There's really no reason to play the Delinquent Duo. I mean, your win condition is to get Jowgen out with last turn and wall. So what's the point of playing Delinquent Duo? I mean, I guess you could run Duo to ditch cards out of your opponent's hand so it slows them down in the process, but I don't feel like there is really a need for Duo. But Graceful Charity is virtually a free draw 3 cards in this deck because of all the discard. Like, I have the Sinister Serpent, the Thousand Dragon, or not Thousand, the Thunder Dragon. I mean, I have the Night Assailant, so look at all this. I mean, Graceful Charity virtually is better than Pot of Greed in this deck because I have so much free discard fodder, it's not even funny. And then Pot of Greed's a self-explanatory reason. Every GOAT deck should play Pot of Greed, even stuff like this that's like trolly and gimmicky should play it. 2 Upstart Goblins. The only reason I'm playing 2 is because Upstart Goblin was only at 2 in GOAT format. If it was at 3, I'll definitely be playing 3 because who cares about giving my opponent 1,000 life? I'm not beating my opponent to death. I'm going to be beating my opponent with Last Turn and Jowgen. So the plus 1,000 free draw is nothing to me. This is kind of like I'm playing 5 Decoichis in a way. Card Destruction, again, for like the Morphing Jar thing where I get cards out of my hand that are dead and I get more cards into my hand from my deck. It just thins out my deck and unbricks my hand. Or this also will randomly come up where an opponent's bragging about I have a good hand, so I'll just activate it straight up then and there. But most of the time, I'm just using it to get dead cards out of my hand. 2 Book of Moon. I don't play Tsukiyomi, so it kind of makes me have to play Book of Moon. I don't really care much for Tsukiyomi. I don't have a side deck built for this deck. But if I did have a side deck, I would probably side 2 Tsukiyomis. It's just this, I feel like Tsukiyomi just, it kind of slows the deck down. I want to like, because if I waste my normal summon for Suki, that means I won't be able to normal summon my Jowgen this turn. So I feel like Book of Moon is just a whole lot better option than Suki. That's the only reason I use Book of Moon. 2 Giant Trinade. 3 was way too many when I played 3. And I don't play Heavy Storm because most of this deck, once you see the number of trap cards in this deck, it's insane the amount of trap cards I play in this deck. So that's the reason why I don't play Heavy Storm, because I don't want to get rid of my stuff. I just want to just return everything to my hand and reset everything to my hand. Or reset everything that was returned to my hand. Next up, 2 Sakuratsu Armor for stalling out my opponent. It's just a cool tech of mine. I've thought about bumping this up to 3, but I think for right now I'm only going to keep it at 2. 1 Mirror Force for a self-explanatory reason. Every GOAT deck should be playing this card. I don't know what you're doing if you're not playing this card, because I don't think there should be a reason to not play this card in GOAT. I mean, unless if you're just scared of Jinzo. But this deck in general should be scared of Jinzo because of all the trap cards. 1 TT. I just use this to slow my opponent down when they start over-pushing. And next up, play 3 Solemn Judgment because it's the best trap card in Yu-Gi-Oh! History, arguably. The fact that this card, this is like one of, the only thing I don't like about this deck is my only outs to Jinzo would be the Night Assailants and then the, where's it at? The Cyber Jar. And so the reason why I run 3 Solemn Judgment is for Jinzo and also for if my opponent tries to chain Book of Moon when I chain with my last turn to my wall. So I just have a Solemn Judgment to 100% make sure that I'm going to be winning the game. Because nobody really runs Solemn Judgment in GOAT format to my knowledge. Nobody that I know at least. 2 Last Turn, it's the best card of the deck because without this card, you wouldn't be able to even play this deck. Last Turn, so just so you guys won't be able to read this text, I'll just skim through the combo over it so I don't have to read out all that crazy text to you. Wall, to put it simply, you can pay thousands of life points until you don't have no more to pay. So normally what I do, if I'm at like 7,000 or 6,000, I'll pay 5,000 of my life points, so it puts me at 1,000 left life points. That's really the only reason that I use it for. But anyways, how the combo works is you'll have a Jowgen on the field, and then you'll have like a wall set, and then you'll have a last turn set. And you don't have to have a Solemn Judgment, but most of the time it helps out in case if they have something like a Book of Moon. And Giant Trinade is another card that you would want to have, but you don't have to have it. So what you'll do is you'll activate Wall, and you'll pay a number of thousand life points. So let's say I was at 3,000 life points. I'll pay 2,000 life points, so it gets me down to 1,000 life points. Then I'll activate my last turn. And last turn can only be activated when I have 1,000 life points or less. And so because of wall, I'm paying all my life points to where I only have 1,000 life points or less. And I select one of my monsters, and the rest of the cards on both players' field and hands are going to the graveyard, except the monster that I targeted. And then my opponent gets to special summon a monster from their deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. But because of Jowgen's effect, my opponent cannot special summon, therefore I'll win the duel off of this card. And the reason why it helps to have a Solemn Judgment is your opponent can technically chain stuff like Book of Moon to Book the Jowgen, and you'll lose that game because then they'll get to special summon a monster to the deck. And Jowgen only has 13 defense, so chances are your Jowgen's going to die because they're just going to summon something out like a Jinzo or something. And you can also chain Ring of Destruction to this as well. That really hurts you. So in the long run, I would probably wait until you have the Solemn Judgment set just in case that they do have something like a ring or a book. And this is the Jowgen FTK deck. I hope you guys enjoyed this. This deck is a lot of fun. And I would imagine a lot of people would be salty when you play this deck up against them. But a lot of the people that I played it up against actually enjoy playing up against this deck because sometimes GOAT format can get stale because it's just Chaos Control, Beast Down, or Standard GOAT, or variants of them decks into one. Like, stuff like this you don't see that much. Every now and then I'll see Empty Jar FTK, but I've never seen Jowgen FTK. Somebody playing it at my locals or even on Dueling Book, so I was like, this deck was actually played a bit back then, so I decided I would make it into my own build, my own personal preference build. But there is another deck that I want to bring to you, and it's actually in the same deck box as my Jowgen deck box. And it is Pac-Man. So if you guys want to see that, I can bring that to you as well. And it's a fun deck as well. Plus, I play Burn. I love Burn. I love Chain Burn, Stall Burn. I love DD Dynamite Burn, Nurse Burn. So I got to have a Burn deck for GOAT format as well if I'm going to represent Burn decks. Anyways, this has been the Only Big Green Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Johnny. If you didn't like the video, dislike it. And if you don't like my channel, unsubscribe. And I'll see you guys later.